Hey everybody, it's Darrell Jr. back again for another episode of the Darrell Jr. Download, and it's the Allied Guest segment. Tim Brewer, the crew chief and the man that used to do the cutaway car on the ESPN race day shows, is going to be in the room, tell us all about his life and his career. We're having a little fun run on crew chiefs from back in the late 70s, early 80s. Tim Brewer's career stretched over many decades, and he's an innovator. Maybe we'll hear some pretty cool stories about how he was creative with the rulebook. Let's get started. The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media. All right, so we're here again for the Allied Guest segment. I want to thank Ally for everything they do for us here at Dirty Mo Media, for the Darrell Jr. Download, for NASCAR, sponsoring race cars for Alex Bowman. They do so many great things across the sport landscape for NASCAR. We need to appreciate the companies that do invest in our sport and be loyal to them, and they're an ally for us, and they bring us this guest segment every single week and help us have so much fun interviewing great people, and we got a great one coming on. Tim Brewer was a crew chief. The list of drivers is ridiculous. Let's go over the list, all right, before he comes in here. Obviously, he worked with, it's not obvious. He started out working with Tiny Lund, Richard Childress, Cale, Yarborough, Darrell, Waltrip. I'm going to forget a few, I bet. Let's see. I got a piece of paper in front of me, even helping me. But there's just so many. Neil Bonnet, Tim Richmond, Bill Elliott, Jeff Bodine, Terry Labonte, Bobby Labonte, Jeff Brabham, Robbie Gordon, John Andretti, and Sterling Marlin. I bet there's a few more in there that we forgot. Maybe he even forgot. David Green, Steve Grissom, Mike Wallace, Kevin LePage, Jimmy Spencer. Long list of drivers that he worked with directly or indirectly as a crew chief, GM. And then again went into working on TV with ESPN. And we all remember the cutaway car. That was a lot of fun. And he was great at telling us why something broke or what innovation the team may be creating, how things worked, right? He's out in the lobby. I'm excited to bring him into the room, get this started. Apparently, you ask him one question, and he's just going to talk for 2 hours. We'll see if that happens.
The last hurrah at Bristol, huh?
I think so, yeah. I don't know. I ain't gonna say I know for sure. I might get a wild hair and do it again a couple of years from now, but I don't think I'll run next year.
Really?
Yeah. This year, I turned 50 in October, and so me and Amy did a bunch of traveling.
Sure.
And
I read where you went to Europe. And
so I enjoyed that. It's been a fun year, and I think next year I might just focus on my work, the broadcasting and stuff with new partners and everything.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that goes good. And I don't want to have even just like one little race in the middle of the calendar year can kind of take a lot of bandwidth.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and I need to miss it a little bit. You know what I mean? And I'm having fun. I'm having a hell of a damn fun time running them little short tracks with my late model.
Sure.
That's fun as hell.
I'll tell you a little story. In 1981, we won the championship with Darrell Waltrip.
Yeah.
I guess it was me and Harold Elliott and Eddie Thrapp. MC Anderson offered us a lot of money to come to Savannah, and my son was 2 years old at that time. And I went, okay, let's go down there and do this thing. Well, we won 4 races with Cale that year and finished second 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But it was all about getting away from the sport to enjoy time with my son growing up.
Yeah.
My son's 44 years old now.
Yeah.
And it was about that at the time because, Dale, I've never had a childhood. I've been working on race cars ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And, I brought something I want to show you.
Yeah, let's see it.
Bobby was telling me that he said, we got some film. That's Metrolina.
Oh, damn.
I sat on a pole and won a race with Richard Childress that day.
And I know you know this. That's Daddy.
Yeah.
That's Daddy, and he's in 44, white and blue 44.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the guys who own that car, but
That's 1975 at Dover, Delaware there. But we sat on the pole and won the race there, and I told Bobby, I said, they didn't give me credit for that one either.
You did what here?
We sat on the pole and won the race up there in Metrolina. But that picture was taken in Dover, Delaware. You know who all those guys are? That's me, Wes Beeroff, Childress, Don Hardy, and that's Bill Patterson.
Oh, okay.
Patterson used to be the general manager over there at RCR.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's 100 years ago.
Man, the old Laguna.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, anyway, these I want to let you look at after a while.
That one with the Metrolina, knowing that's dad getting ready to run that car, is 75. He ain't got somehow he's talked them into letting him run in that race against all those guys. And he's driving that fella's car that run, 6 or 10 races somewhere during the schedule. Wasn't a really great car. And that Metrolina race sounded like a bit of a wild affair.
It was a slugfest.
Yeah.
Because Cale was there, and I forgot whose car he was in, and Walter Ballard, and there was a bunch of good guys there. But when we sat on the pole,
I think Cale might have been in Tommy Houston's car.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But
or not. Yeah, it might have been Tommy
Dick Beatty. I told Childress, I said, this thing a little sluggish up off the corners. Looked like it's a little slow right there, and I had a 567 gear in the car. Well, I told Childress, I said, we had a big block Chevrolet. And I said, let me put a 583 in it, and we'll qualify with it, and then I'll change it. I was going real good till after we qualified and sat on the pole. I jacked the car up, and here come Dick Beatty. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? I got to change a gear in this thing. He said, no, you qualify with it? You're going to race it. I said, well, I'm going to give you a little piece of advice. He said, what's that? I said, you need to move them grandstands back about 5 rows. He said, why is that? I said, this thing going to blow all to hell and kill about half them people in the front grandstands. But, hey, Childress, you know how he is. He's nervous all the time. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, don't worry, R.C. I'll fix it. He sat down in the car, and he's buckling it in. He said, what'd you do? I said, I taped up the tachometer. He said, what? He said, that's going to fix it? I said, well, at least you ain't going to have to look at the thing. They're 7,800 RPMs. But anyway, that's back in the day when we used to have a lot of fun doing what we did. Yeah,
things were a whole lot easier, man. You started off, they probably felt hard, but looking back on them, I bet you had more fun. You started out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and going to Bowman Gray and getting involved and working on cars there in the modified scene. Is that correct?
We started at Bowman Gray Stadium, Dale, and every corner at every service station had a race car parked in it.
Man.
And, when you're riding up and down the road, your little huffy bicycle with the handlebars and stuff and cards on the spokes making noise, you go by Bowman Gray Stadium, and my brother and I, which he was a year and a half older than me, he goes, what's that noise? I don't know. Let's go find out. And, we went to Bowman Gray Stadium and started watching those guys in the modified cars run back years ago. And my dad, he had a little old hobby car over there, and it was something to piddle with.
Yeah.
But, we kind of got away from that, and then they started doing this dirt track racing. I hate red mud. I hate it. I said, man, I got to get away from this. So I went and started working with a little guy named Ernie Shaw and Richard Childress on Grand American cars.
Oh.
And we went all over God's creation. I mean, we'd start in Columbia, South Carolina with those Grand American cars, Dale, and then we'd go down to Savannah, then we'd go out to Jackson, Mississippi, up through Nashville, Tennessee, and they called it the Northern Tour. And I'm 14 years old, and I'm driving a C550 Ford cab-over truck with hydraulic clutch, and I'll never forget it. You had to pump that thing all the way through New York City to keep the fluid built up in it. And, you're 14 years old. But, I mean, that's the way I started. And Tiny Lund, great guy. Went to work for him down in Cross, South Carolina. Drove my old 64 Chevrolet down there.
How old were you then?
16.
Help me understand who Tiny Lund was. So I know the stories about him. Everybody's heard the story about him driving for the Wood Brothers in Daytona,
exactly.
All of that. I know how he passed. But I don't know. I've never seen a video of him talking. I don't know what he sounds like, what he walks like. I don't know much about the man.
He was a big man, probably 6'5". Funniest thing I ever seen him do, when he was driving a Pepsi-Cola Cougar for Tom Pistone, he grabbed Pistone by the ankles and picked him up and stuck him in a trash can. But Tiny was a big joker, But I'm going to tell you something. He's the best on dirt next to your grandfather I ever seen. But he would turn that thing backwards at the flag stand, back it all the way up to the guardrail, stand in the gas, and go down the backstretch like a bat out of the ugly place.
Yeah.
But talking about your grandfather, I was probably 8, maybe 9 years old, and that's when we was doing them dirt tracks, and we went to Butner. And I seen a guy named Ralph Earnhardt with a number 8 on it, and a guy named Earl Moss, and a old 64 Fairlane was painted red, had a number 300 on it. Earnhardt, they run 200 laps and never put a tire mark on either car. I mean, they put on a show, and they were side by side the whole way. But your grandfather, he was tough on dirt. But yeah. Tiny, he was a good man. He done a good deed for the Wood brothers, pulling Marvin Panch out of a fiery crash. And the Wood brothers are the salt of the earth, great people. And I went up and spent the day with Leonard, Lenny, and Eddie back February a year ago. And I was so humbled when I walked in that place. That museum that they have up there in Stewart, Virginia, when you walk in, there's a 2x3 portrait of everybody that's ever won in that 21 car. And when they walk you through there, I mean, it's so humbling. And I'll never forget, Lenny took me back where Leonard was working on some 427 tunnel port cylinder heads, and he was hand making them. And he said, "Hey, we got a guest." Leonard goes, "I'll be through in a minute." And he pulled that old welding helmet up, and he went, "You scoundrel!"
Yeah.
But I love those people up there. They're great.
So, how many years did you work? Did you work with Tiny?
I didn't work there a whole year.
Yeah.
We went down, and Jim Hall, he was a crew chief down there, and there was a big miscommunications deal, and there was a lot of friction there. And I don't do friction.
Sure.
You know, I just don't do it. But at the end of the day, Richard Childress, I had talked with him, and that's when he was at Rockingham, North Carolina, and we were down there with Tiny Lund's car. And Childress, for some reason or another, he put an old open gear in that car to make a qualifying run. And I'm telling you, Dale, he got loose coming off of turn 4, and he hit the end of that guardrail. And I'm telling you, it pushed the roll cage out the left side of that car. I thought it killed him. And he thought he was dead too. But, you know, I felt so sorry for Childress that day, because I'm telling you, he was close to going away.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Tiny Lund era, that led me to Richard Childress.
Yep.
And that was working on his old 72 Chevelle. And he's running short track races back then, and we didn't have no money to speak of. Along came Tom Garn, and he owned L.C. Newton Trucking Company out of Seaford, Delaware. And that's when we got enough money to get the good motors and, you know, get a good chassis. And, you know, we started running pretty good.
Yeah.
And Martinsville, I think we went up there and finished 5th. And that's pretty good for an independent team. But
sure.
Back in the day, you had David Sisko, and you had Terry Bivens, had James Hilton, and all those guys. You know, but it was a lot of fun. And there was probably 3 teams that had like 2 people apiece. So, you know, whoever was running ahead in the deal, he got to pit first, and then the next guy got to fit second, and the next guy got to fit third. But, I mean, you worked back then. You didn't nobody give you nothing. You had to do it all yourself.
Yeah. You worked with him for quite a while, though, 73 to 77. I mean, that's a long time.
Into 77.
So what changed? You're happy, you're there, you got loyalty. What was telling you it's time to move on? The
biggest thing was we were at Darlington in 77, and we used to call it 311 race team. We had the 3 and the 11 car, and we'd always pit beside each other, and, you know, Henry Benfield and Herb Nab and all that stuff. And, you know, it was that win in Metrolina that set me on fire. You know, I said, we can do this. Yeah. You know, we can win races. We can be competitive. And RC knew it, and, you know, he was trying to fund it properly. And like I said, for a long time we did. But Cale Yarborough hung the right rear wheel of the Holly Farms car on an iron pole at the end of pit road at Darlington. And I'm thinking, okay, this ain't good. So I'm over there. We done blew up in Childress's motor. And the deal was, Junior come running up there, and he said, Brewer, I need the rear end housing out from under that car.
Was that when it yanked all the lines, and they had that little press box kind of thing, 2-story thing on the other side of pit wall, on the interior pit wall, and it yanked all the wires down pit road?
Well, Cale, when he hooked that right reel on there, I mean,
it was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It was wires and power lines and things going everywhere.
But when Junior told me, he said, Bro, I want that rear end housing out from under the car, I said, okay. He must have had 10 guys over there working on his, and I think me and Grady Click and maybe one other guy, we pulled it out and we got it sitting there, and he goes, how'd you get that thing out from under there? You said you wanted it. There it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I helped him put it up under there, and I got a picture on my phone. I'm in a Kansas Jack uniform out there with all them Holly Farms guys, and we're still working on pit road. And I'm like, maybe 18.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Junior, he said, what happened to your motor? I said, motor blowed up. He said, what gear you got in that thing? I said, a 400. It slows down 3 seconds here, so I always put a low gear in it. He goes, a 400? He said, I got a 370 in mine. I said, we're getting ready to find out how good your motor is then. But later on that year, we were in Ontario, California. And, you drive the truck out, you drive it back, you don't get a chance to do nothing. And, at that time I was getting real serious with my wife, Susan, which, we got married in 78, been married 46 years, and together 5 years before that. And it's like, RC, this ain't going too good, you know what I mean? And Junior called Childress. He said, hey, Herb Nab is leaving here. He said, can I talk to Tim? He said, what do you want to talk to Tim about? He said, maybe taking Herb's place. And Richard said, Junior, if you need to talk to him, he said, yeah. He said, go ahead and talk to him. And so Junior called me. He said, hey, can you ride up here and talk to me a little bit? Be more than happy to. So I went up there, and Junior and I were talking, and, the kind of money he come up off the bat with, and I went, man, I ain't never made that kind of much money in my life, But we cut a deal, and it wasn't 20 minutes. Travis Carter come to the front door in the office, and he knocked on the door, and he said, Junior, can I talk to you for a minute? He said, yeah. I said, what do you need, Travis? He said, come up here and talk to you about that crew chief job. He said, well, I hired Tim to do that. He said, well, I just want to come talk to you about it. I said, hey, Travis, can you give us a minute? He said, yeah, why? I said, let's. And I asked Junior, I said, hey, you got enough money in the till for Travis? He goes, what do you mean, Brewer? I said, well, you hired me to win this championship 3 in a row. Ain't been done. You want to win that championship? Yep. I said, I think Travis would be a big asset to us.
Yeah.
He said, do you know what you're saying? Well, you hired me to crew chief and make good decisions and try to win this championship. I think that man would be a big asset to us. And he said, yeah, I can do that. I said, that's good. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And Travis Carter and I, Dale, we worked together for probably 4 years. We never had a cross word. I filled in for him when he had to go to the hospital and his mother had his legs amputated. And my wife, she's got appendicitis, and I stay in Talladega. And Cale, he come by me, and I could read the lead on the front of the car like this on the roof. And, I run down there, and he said, Brewer, Marcus, run in the back of me, cut my legs off.
Yeah.
I said, short man, your legs are still there, you know? He goes, Brewer, he scared me to death. Man grabbed me so hard it wasn't even funny. But Cale, he was tougher than a pine knot. I loved him to death.
I think when people always ask me about, they always, I think, assume that my dad was the only person that I loved to follow or loved to pull for in racing. But actually, I thought Cale was who I was probably most impressed with in terms of I liked his approach, I love Daddy's approach. I love how aggressive he was. I wasn't going to be that kind of person. I just didn't have that personality, but I thought Cale's approach to driving and his style of driving and how he felt about certain challenges that he faced, certain disagreements he had with other drivers, and how he handled those. I really always loved his approach. And when the crash happened at Talladega, that was a nasty deal. So Buddy Baker's coming down the front straightaway in the Gray Ghost and has a flat tire. Either flat tire or he's too loose, but he gets out of shape in the tri-oval and wiped out a lot of people. A lot of cars got wiped out in the wreck. But Cale gets out, and he's kind of just looking at his car, and DK Ulrich or somebody slides in there.
Dave
But Marcus was already wrecked.
Yeah.
And there's so he's standing between his car and Marcus's, but somebody slid in there. DK Ulrich or somebody slid in there and hit Marcus's car and pushed Marcus's car into Cale's car. And Marcus tells about that. Marcus told us about that story, how Cale was laying there going, "Are my legs still there?" He was afraid to look.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was genuinely freaked out about that.
Hey, and he was tough as a pine nut.
Right.
But I'm telling you, when you feel like you lost your legs, I mean, that's very humbling. But,
Sure.
Cale, he was one of my favorites. I remember you in 1992 running around with your little Goodrich shirt on and the hat and all that stuff. And, we was having a good year with Bill Elliott that year, and, Chocolate and Kirk and a whole bunch of us. Everybody got along back then. Had a lot of fun, but I'm going to tell you a quick story about Cale. 1982, I ain't never had a man hug me like he hugged me when we won that 5th Southern 500.
Yeah.
I mean, we were there at the spring race and got spun out, and MC Anderson and the girls, they went home. Well, me and Harold and Barry and Eddie, we didn't know no better. We stayed there and said, "Hey, it ain't over with yet."
Yeah.
We finished second in the first race, and he come back and won the second race. But Cale told me after the race, he said, "You come to the house." I said, "What are we going to do?" He said, "We're going to drink some beer." I said, "Okay." And I walked in there. Dale, he's up on he's got a nice bar about like this, but it's laminated. And it must sit 20 people there. "Brewer, get up here." "Man, I ain't walking on that bar." He goes, "Get up here. We'll have it fixed tomorrow." But anyway, he was so proud of that 5th Southern 500.
Yeah.
And, hey, I was too.
Yeah, I bet. I would love to hear your memory on 1980. Y'all barely missed out on the championship, but it was Dad's first. Comes all the way down to the last couple of, handful of laps there at Ontario. Dad had a lug nut off, had to come back down pit road and lost a little time, but got enough points to end up barely winning the championship. But the whole season, was a bit out of character for y'all. Y'all had a lot of engine issues and just had some bad moments that were not typical of what y'all had done in the years past. And it was fortunate for Dad because it gave him the opportunity to try to go out there and win a championship. But take me back to that 1980 season and watching Dad, right, do what he did. And he wasn't the intimidator yet. He was still raw.
No.
There's a lot of articles with Cale critiquing Dad's determination and aggression.
The biggest thing that I'm going to say happened to your dad was Jake Elder.
Yeah.
Jake Elder came in there with Rod Osterlund, and, Dale used to say he used to grab that thing on my uniform and pull me over and say, "Boy."
Yeah.
But Jake was a great, great reader of race cars. And he could look at that car and he could talk to your dad and he could pretty much tell him what he needed. And that was a big plus for your dad. The big demise for us was, like I said, we blew up that year a couple times. We blew up one time in Pocono and changed the motor in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And, we come back and the press, they got on us. They said, you guys can't do that. And Junior told him, he said, "Well, y'all just come to the shop." So they come to the shop. Junior, he's in the car. He drives it down off the hill. We're all set up. Dale, we had the two engine hoists there. We had transmissions. We had 180 headers. We had everything on there. Timing was set. Everything was done. When Junior stopped, we jacked the car up. When it hit the ground, it was 7 minutes and 28 seconds.
Yeah.
Travis Carter was underneath. I was on the side. Harold Elliott was in there. But that was what we went through that year. You have little glitches here, a little glitch there. Well, when you running against people of your dad's caliber back then, It all adds up. And it don't take you long to lose.
Yeah.
But it's like I was fortunate enough to win a championship in 1981, with Darrell. That was good. 1978 with Cale, that was great. But we clicked. You go back to 78, we won 11 races.
Yeah.
81, same way with Darrell. We won the Busch Clash. We won everything. Everything. And, you had those good years. But when you have those bad years and you got people of as good a caliber as you are next to you, that's the determining factor. That's just like Richard Petty. I still laugh at Dale Lemon. I said, Dale Lemon, won 200 races. He said, yeah, Richard said I probably won 300 if I hadn't been a crew chief. But you surround yourself with good people, Dale, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with idiots, you'll become one. I mean, that's just the way it is and the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
But Junior, he always told us, boys, don't let nothing fall off of my race car.
Yeah.
And you give Cale Yarborough, Dale Earnhardt, a race car that's bulletproof, and they're going to win a lot of races with them.
So how did you handle the relationship between Cale and Junior? Because there were times when Cale would say something. Cale would get out of the car and talk, say, well, damn, we'll win these races when the motor quits blowing up. And Junior would get pissed.
Oh, yeah.
And Junior would go into the meeting and say, well, if he thinks he can do any better, he can go drive somebody else's race car.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the middle of a season where they won 3 championships together, and here we are sitting here just on the verge of winning another one. How did you manage that friction?
Well, that's like Cale had a Shasta sponsorship. And, you out there on pit road and you'd see all our soft drinks laying on the ground and all the Shastas in there. Then here Junior come, he'd dump them out and put the other ones back. And I'm going, can you guys get this figured out? You know what I mean? But, that's just the way it was. That's when
Junior got the last word, though.
Oh, yeah.
All the time, every time.
All the time. Because
did he were there moments behind were there moments away from the media at the shop where you saw Junior go, Cale, I need you to stop. Why are you saying what you're saying? Don't say it publicly.
That's where they were men. You didn't get in on those conversations.
Oh, yeah.
When he said, Cale, I need to talk to you for a minute, they'd go off in the office and shut the door.
Yeah.
And they were men. Same way Junior taught me how to do it. He said, you always take a man aside and show him what's doing right or what's he doing wrong. And, you learn a lot. You hang around Banjo Matthews and Junior Johnson and Harold Elliott. And that's another thing. Harold Elliott, we tore up a lot of motors, but he won championships in 76, 77, 78. We won one in 81. Oh, by the way, he won one in 89 with Rusty Wallace. Why the hell he ain't in the Hall of Fame, I have no clue.
Yeah.
But Harold Elliott, he was a good man, and he was my friend. But, Harold Elliott, I go to war with him any minute, any time, any day. He was that good, Dale.
Yeah. You won a lot of races working with Junior. You kind of mentioned family was one reason, but why do you leave after the success of 81? You got Darrell Waltrip Jr. They're a great pairing that's going to have success, winning races. Got a got an iconic car in the Mountain Dew number 11. Can't seem to do any wrong. Car to beat every week.
The truth of the matter, when Eddie Thrapp said that MC Anderson might be interested in us, I said, okay, that's fine. So Harold, Eddie, and myself, Harold, we get in the car and we drove to Savannah, Georgia.
To meet with MC
To meet
Anderson.
with MC
What does
Anderson.
Junior know about all this?
He didn't know nothing.
All right.
And because Junior's deal was still on the table. But when they start stacking money up on a table, and you ain't never seen that kind of money before, it changes your mind quick.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I made a comment to Jeff Hammond. I said, it's a possibility that I might be leaving, so you might need to be ready if I leave. What does he do? He calls Harold Johnson.
Oh, the newsman.
They put it on TV. I'm in Winston-Salem at John Morrow's Christmas party with a bunch of federal judges and stuff. And, you know, we had a pretty good time. And anyway, long story short, I come in there the next morning, and Junior says, y'all get up here. I want to talk to y'all right now. And he's sitting behind his desk, and he's got an old coat on, and he's got them big old brogans on. And he's, like, swinging that foot, and that desk is coming off the floor about like that. And he said, I hear you boys might be going somewhere. I said, well, there's a possibility. I got an opportunity. I ain't saying I'm going, but I said, I got an opportunity. He said, well, how much money are they going to pay you? I said, more than double. He said, there ain't that much money around here. But Hammond's the one that lit the fire on that damn wagon.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you know, whatever, that's fine. But as Mike Hill told me later, and Darrell Waltrip will tell you today, he said, Tim Brewer built me 14 race cars that year to win that championship. And you don't take springs off of them, you don't take shocks off of them, you don't take ballast out of them. You pack the wheel bearings and put them back over there. And that's the way the deal is.
Yeah.
And when I left, that's like, hey, there you go, Junior. He gave me a pretty good bonus, and I give him a setup book, and that was the end of that. But like old Mike Hill told him, he said, Jeff Hammond was Darrell Waltrip's crew chief. He said, I was Junior's crew chief.
Yeah.
And my job was, don't mess with them race cars right there, because Tim Brewer got a lot of cars that win a lot of races. And Mike Hill told me, he said, Jeff Hammond couldn't even screw that up. But 82.
I sense some competition between you and Jeff.
Well, it wasn't no competition to me.
Well, I mean, in terms of like there's some animosity.
I don't like the way I was done.
But you've
Junior and I had an opportunity to talk it out, we could have probably resolved it. But at the end of the day, his attitude and my attitude, you know how that goes.
Yeah, but fair enough. But I mean, in the decades since, I'm sure you've crossed paths and talked it out.
Sure. It's like anything else, you know.
But you never worked again together.
Well, there again, when Raymond Beadle didn't pay some of his bills, mainly mine, you know, I said, you know, whatever. But Junior, he went to bat for me on a deal, a personal deal. And I said, okay, I owe you one. Well, he called me at the end of 1984, and he said, I need to collect that debt. I said, what do you need? He said, I got Darrell in the Budweiser 11. He said, I got Neil in the 12. He said, I need you to come back up here, and if you take care of that 12, I'll take care of this 11. He said, one of us going to win the championship. And that's when Darrell, they cut all the bodies off of them cars at the end of 82.
Yeah,
and that's when the
Monte Carlos on them.
Yeah, and the Pepsi Challenger,
right.
They couldn't hit their ass with neither hand.
They had a rough year with that yellow car.
Oh, boy, terrible. And Darrell, he liked to give it all up at Daytona when he got T-boned by Marcus over there. So at the end of the day, they had junk. Mm-hmm. They had junk. And I told Junior, I said, okay, I'll come back. And I'll never forget, Gilbert Conley, one of the body guys up there, he smarted off as soon as I walked in the door. He said, well, I don't guess we're going to get no bonus this year because Brewer's back. He's going to get all the money. I said, hey, Hoss, did you cut your deal with Junior? He said, yeah. I said, well, I cut mine. You got it? But the Doug Reichert, he was up there, and, you know, I looked at their cars and this, that, and the other, and I went, and I said, Junior, there's a better way of doing this. And I love Banjo Matthews to death, but Mike Laughlin had some really good race cars back then. And I called Mike. I said, hey, can you give me a chassis? He goes, yeah. So they put me a body on it. We go to the wind tunnel, and that's with Neil Bonnet's car. And we had a pretty good race car in 85.
Yeah.
I mean, we were leading the race with 5 laps to go, and the motor blowed up.
In a tribal.
Exactly. And Neil liked to hit the end of the pit wall down there. I mean, it scared me to death. But 5 laps, and Bill Elliott won the race.
Yeah.
Dale, I threw everything I had at him. I mean, Junior told me, he said, well, I run up on him, I'll beat him. I said, really? I said, I got a load of CAM2 fuel, propylene oxide. I got everything in the world. And I said, I threw that at him, and Neil told me, he said, Brewer, when Bill goes down the corner, He said, I see him back out of the gas, and I see him get back in the gas because I see a puff of black smoke come out. He said, he ain't even holding it wide open. He said, I'm doing everything I can do, and I'm holding it wide open.
Yeah.
I said, all right. Later that year, Southern 500, Junior said, I'll run up on him. I'll beat him. I said, yeah, sure. Hey, how'd that work for you? Bill won him $1 million. Yeah. Not too good, huh?
Yeah.
So I go back home. I told Neil, I said, I'll build you a better race car next year. And I took that tread width down from 60.5 inches down to 58 inches. Well, I told Neil, I said, I'll get you that nose band back, and I won't get a little bit better body on that car. I built him a 56-inch tread width car. Then Bonnet told me, he said, Brewer, this thing will fly. I said, okay. What cost Bill Elliott the championship in 1985 was the shifter forks in the transmission at Riverside. Keith Sawyer, guess what he put in my race transmission for the Daytona 500? The same damn ones. And we had made billet shifter forks for it. And I still got it in my toolbox in my garage at home. And I go, Leakey, why did you put them in there? Well, I didn't think he'd tear them up. I said, Neil Bonnet can tear up an anvil. You know, you don't never, anything you break, you throw it away and you redo it. But that's what cost me 2 Daytona 500s.
So I want to step back before I want to talk more about working back at juniors with Neil. But you mentioned Blue Max or Raymond Beadle. You helped put that program together. So you left juniors to MC Anderson's and kind of got it. MC Anderson's gets bought, right?
Yeah, Raymond Beadle.
By Raymond Beadle.
Raymond Beadle used to come to the shop all the time.
Drag racer.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because he used to come to the shop all the time, and he'd go, Brewer, if I ever start a race car team, said NASCAR, you be interested? I said, Beadle, that's down the road. Just, you know, give me a call sometime. But when MC Anderson told me, he said, hey, this thing's for sale.
Why did he want to sell?
Because Cale wouldn't run for a championship.
Well, he knew that.
He knew it going in, but he reiterated it. Dale, we finished second at Daytona 500. We finished second at Darlington. We finished second at Atlanta. We won 4 races and won races at Michigan. And, you know, he said, I got a championship caliber team here.
And he wanted to run more races.
Yeah. And
why didn't he just get him a driver that would run more?
He wanted Cale. He said, Cale won't run for it. I ain't going to do it.
Yeah. So he put it up for sale.
I called Hal Needham, Travis's boss man. He come to Savannah. Picked him up at the airport. He goes, Brewer, what's that smell down here? I said, it's bag air. I said, people down here call it the smell of money.
Yeah.
He said, this place stinks. But you know how Hal Needham was. He was a good guy.
What's he down there for?
He was going to buy the race team.
Oh.
And he was going to put Tim Richmond in the car, and, you know, we were going to run it. Well, that didn't materialize, so I called Raymond Beadle.
He's already got a car.
He's already got Harry Gant's car.
He's going to have 2.
He's going to have 2 teams, but Lou Bannell, he funded Hal Needham's movie car. He said, I got so much money in that thing, you don't need another race team. You need to finish that movie car. So that was kind of nipped that one in the butt. But at the end of the day, Beadle, he come down there and cut a deal with MC, and I could have bought into the thing, but Earnhardt, I just made some money. You know, I ain't going to spend all the money I just made. I mean, at the end of the day, me and Harold, we look at each other and go, hey, we'll just work for Beadle for a while. Okay, that's fine. And
so did Beadle say we're going full-time and we're going to go with Tim Richmond?
Yeah.
Cale's moving on. He's going to the 28.
Dale, I went to Detroit, Michigan with a meeting with Stroh Brewery. Me and Beadle, we walked in there that morning. We left that afternoon with a check for $2.3 million.
There's a lot of money back then.
Sammy Swindell's going to run the sprint car. Raymond Beadle's going to run the drag car. Tim Richmond's going to run the cup car.
Yeah.
End of deal. And we bought all that stuff down there in Savannah. And Larry McReynolds, he was my truck driver back then. And McReynolds, he's down there in Savannah loading that stuff up. And the guy from the front office come out. He said, hey, you can't leave here with that truck yet. He said, why is that? He said, check ain't cleared yet. And Larry called me, said, what I'm going to do? I said, you got a sleeper? He said, yeah. I said, lay in the sleeper and tell the guy to come get you. When the check clears, bring it on back.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Joel Hauptner, you remember him? Mm-mm. His family built the World Trade Center. Joel Halpner owned a car that was driven by David Pearson. Number 16.
Yeah,
there you
car,
go.
Yeah.
That's when, they were in that place that was now Blue Max.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we were in Bristol in 1981, and that's with Darrell. And Halpner had an offshore boat, and the throttle man showed up sick. So Joel got in there, and he was going to be the throttle man. Boat come over the bow, killed Joel Halpner.
Damn.
Yeah, killed him dead. I mean, that was a bad year because George Beard got killed that year. He was head guy at Goodyear. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Beetle says, hey, I bought all this stuff down there, but I can buy all Joel Halpner's stuff. And that Blue Max Racing building, I mean, it was second to none. You got the money, I got the time.
Yeah.
So we went in there and bought all that stuff, and then we had Harold Elliott, had the three Allman brothers and all that stuff in the motor room, had old Harold Fagan. I got a picture if you want me to show it to you.
So you got them 2 race teams and merged them together.
Yes,
in
sir.
terms of equipment, cars, and all that.
I think it's on my phone. I'll show it to you.
That's all right.
But I got Raymond Beadle, Tim Richmond, Slick Poston. You remember Big Slick?
Yep.
And Harold Fagan. I got all those guys. Wayne Dalton. I think there's 15 of us in the picture. Banjo Grimm, Larry McReynolds, and me were the only 3 alive today.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that goes back. That's history, man. That's history. But we formed that thing, and Pontiac, Ed McLean, he was dead on me to run a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest brick in the
It
world.
was an ugly race car.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
So I told Slim after the test in Daytona, I said, you remember that Le Mans that Bobby Allison had? He said, yeah. I said, I'm going to build you one.
Yeah, that Le Mans that Tim Richmond had was a brand new built car.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Brand new.
And so they had already started cutting a spoiler on that car or doing something trying to minimize its advantage.
Everybody had 4.5 inches of rear spoiler.
And
NASCAR told me, said, you run that car, you get 3 inches.
Right. So nobody messed with the car anymore, but you did.
Yeah. I had Tim Richmond.
Y'all ran it at Pocono and all kinds of
sat
places.
on the pole, won the race at Pocono.
Yeah.
Sat on the pole, Charlotte. Long story short there, I had Dorsey Patrick up on top of the truck taking pictures. And that left front wheel would be on that yellow line. That left rear wheel would be up there about 1 foot, 18 inches. Mm-hmm. And Tim Richmond like a mule eating briars. As long as that thing would turn, hey, he didn't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your dad, we're in Talladega in 1983. Tim had a rough night. Saturday morning, he didn't show up. Your dad comes by. Where's he at? I had a rough night. I ain't seen him. What do you need? You give me a plug check? Yeah. The old man crawled in that thing. I said, hey,
I got a picture of this. So there's a picture of Dad in the 27 old Milwaukee car, and I've always wondered, wonder what the hell he was doing.
I'll tell you what he was doing. He got out in that car. I said, don't run about 3 laps. Typical Earnhardt, run 10, come in there, pull the window net down, checked out. Ain't seen nothing. Hey, how'd that do for you?
Yeah, right.
Ain't said nothing. He went and got in his car, went out and run it. He come back after a while. He goes, Brewer, tell me something. I said, what's that? He goes, my car going through that travel, take your breath. He said, this thing goes through there like shot an arrow through there. How you make it through that? I said, damn, Earnhardt, I forget. He said, you didn't forget. I said, you think I'm going to tell you how to do that?
Yeah.
I said, this thing ain't got but 3 inches of spoiler on the back of it. But I said, NASCAR forgot one little thing. Daytona and Talladega, that's all this cat needs is 3 inches of rear spoiler. You guys were running around there with them boards on the back of them things with 4.5 inches.
Yeah.
I said, hey, that's a double-edged sword, but that bit him in the butt.
Yeah.
But I finally did tell him, I said, I guarantee you probably got 4 degrees of caster in the right front, and you still got negative in that left front wheel, don't you?
That's right.
He goes, how you know that? I said, I know Dale Earnhardt, because that negative caster helps the car from the middle of the corner off getting tight at short tracks. I said, dude, you run a 200-mile-an-hour down here, you better put you about 5 positive over here and 3 positive over there. I said, I have had 7 and 5. How do you get away with that?
Yeah.
I said, goes good, don't it?
Yeah.
He went, I can't complain. But live and learn. But the old man, he had a good eye on him. And, I mean, he got on me pretty hard one day. He goes, why the hell do you cheat so much? I said, I don't call it cheating. I call it self-defense. He said, how you figure that? I said, the last time I looked on the roof or the door of my car, it didn't have Dale Earnhardt on it.
Yeah.
He goes, you know how he smirked and grinned? He got it then.
Yeah.
It's self-defense.
Yeah.
And I had great guys. I had Tim Richmond. I had Neil Bonnet. I had Darrell Waltrip. But that's Dale Earnhardt. You know what I'm saying? Darrell Andrews sat beside of me every race. His job was to monitor your dad.
Really?
And clock your dad. That's all he did. He carried tires. And, hey, I used to laugh at him. Darrell, he'd be sitting there and he'd bust out laughing. I said, what the hell did he say now? He said, Richard, I'm telling you right now, I've held Davey off all day long, but Robert's getting ready to pass my ass, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was saying.
The engine.
But, I mean, he was pretty blunt.
Yeah.
He called Childress on the radio one day. He said, what in the hell did Brewer do to the right side of that car during that pit stop? I don't know. He said, what does he think? He's at Bowman Gray Stadium running a modified car? He said, what are you talking about, Dale? He said, when they started the race, Terry had his tires on the inside defenders. Not at 3.5, 4 inches outside the what? I went, guy's got a good eye on him, don't he? Anyway, I laughed, but I'd been over to Tiger Tom's a couple of weeks before. You know, ramble through some of the old stuff and see what's going on. Dale, I found 11 10.5-inch wheels with 3 inches more offset than the Cup cars had. But I didn't find 11 of them. And I went, hey, y'all put me 5 sets of tires up in a sleeper and let's take them back to the shop with North Wilkesboro. So, okay. I put them wheels and them tires together. We took them back in there. The next day, that first pit stop, looked like a modified car running around the Bowman Gray Stadium. Your old man, he was higher than a Jap.
I bet.
But it was a game. You know, the last time I went to the racetrack was Friday afternoon at Martinsville when you won the race on Sunday. And I think we did a radio show on Sirius Satellite Radio. That's the last time I've been to the racetrack.
That was a 14.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's the last time I went to the racetrack.
Yeah.
Dude, when I walked. You know, I just when they take something away from you that you can't get back, you know, and you know how hard and how tough it was to build it, you go, I ain't young enough and I ain't got the heart to do that again.
Yeah.
And, you know, racing your dad and Bonnet and Tim Richmond and, you know, dealing with men, Leonard Wood, Glenn Wood, Bud Moore. You know, them people, they demanded respect.
They did.
And if you didn't give them respect, they'd kick your ass. Bud Moore could pull a knife out on you in a heartbeat. But I went to his funeral and seen him laying in that casket. And he had told me years ago, he said, Brewer, when that tailgate fell on that truck and we were on that beach, he said, this guy got killed and this guy got killed. And he said, I'm probably 18 years old. He said, I was scared to death.
In World War II.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those were men.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you grow up with people like that and you see what's going on this day and time. Hey, brother, mind over matter. You don't mind, it don't matter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just, like I said, I didn't have the heart and I didn't have the people. Pete Wright called me last night. And, Brewer, what are you doing? I said, get ready to go to bed, man. He said, you getting old. I said, dude, I'll be 70 in February.
Yeah.
But, I mean, do I act it?
No.
Probably no.
No.
But at the end of the day, Dale, I didn't have the heart nor the financial means nor anything else to do what I wanted to do. So I just turned around and walked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I think, you know, we're all faced with that reality one day when there's a and I kind of struggle with it too. Like I have such have such a passion and love and connection to the history, what the actual temperature and vibe was like in the garage and in the pits on a Friday or a Saturday during the 80s and 90s. Obviously, I wasn't lucky enough to be around in the 70s, and it's different today. It doesn't feel the same. It's different, not worse, not bad, not that I don't like it, but I feel like it's passed me by. I don't relate to the car like I used to. I don't necessarily relate to the drivers like I used to. To your point, right? I mean, we all have a bad habit, I think, of really kind of hanging on to how it used to be, right? But every once in a while, like this past Sunday, I'll see something that reminds me of what I love and always loved, right, about NASCAR, like that finish to the race at Watkins Glen with Chris Buescher. I'm like, that right there is why I'm still here, why I'm still hanging around. Because every once in a while, it's the same old NASCAR that I've always known.
I'm gonna give you a good piece of advice. Banjo Matthews told me one time, and old Banjo is a smart old dude now. He said, Brewer, as you go through life, your emphasis change. He said, when you're young, you're interested in, I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Mm-hmm. I can go do this and I can go do that and I can win this and I can win that. Then you're making a little bit of money, and then that changes you a little bit. The only guy that never changed was your dad. He'd run for two cents if he knew he could win. He didn't care about the damn money. He'd go selling souvenirs and making some money. But Banjo told me, he said, what's going to change a guy more than anything else is family and children. And that's going to make you think twice about, well, when you go off down in that corner, if you ain't looking down there at that yellow line, you're looking up there at that wall, and that little green man's going, I'll bite your ass. Yeah. I'll bite your ass. And when it's time to do that, it's time to go do something else.
Oh, yeah.
But he said, you'll never have a race car driver have an engine builder that can carry a heavy wallet. But your dad didn't apply to that because, like I said, he'd run his tongue out. It's like him and Cale Yarborough. I told Cale one time, I said, you won the race by 7 laps. You won everything but the grandstands. Well, I didn't know they was up for grabs. Yeah. They wanted it all.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted it all, and they would give it all to get it.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't see many people like that anymore. They want to argue about the money. They want to argue about the souvenir money, and that's like Jeff Bodine. That's the worst cat in the world to argue about money. We're coming back on an airplane from Pocono, and he's sitting there with a briefcase, probably got 50 grand in it, 1s, 10s, 5s, whatever. And all my guys always got hundreds. And we're sitting there trying to play poker, and we're trying to get change and making change and this, that, and the other. Just same way we used to play.
Have fun.
Yeah,
passing the time.
And he's sitting there with a briefcase full of money, and he could have said, here, I got change for all that. And it would have made life a lot easier for me and Mike Hill and Pete and Junior, sure. Bud Green, a whole bunch of us. But he sat there on that thing and he said, I could have made change. What are you talking about? Well, I got a briefcase here full of money. I said, why the hell did you? I said, we don't care how much money you got.
Yeah.
We don't care. We just want to have a good poker game. But he come in one morning. He said, they tracked mud in my motorhome. Yeah. Can't you buy another mat? Whatever.
Yeah.
But, he complained about stuff that didn't make no difference about nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Get a life, dude.
I want to go back to going back to juniors and helping Neil and working on Neil's car. You would be around Darrell, and you're back at the organization that you'd left. You hadn't burned any bridges because Junior and you were back together. But Hammond was there. It was very competitive. That was back in the day when drivers, Dad and Darrell Waltrip openly would say they didn't love being part of a 2-car operation.
Yeah.
Marcus quit Osterland because he said, I ain't being a part of a 2-car team when they were bringing Dad in. So, the idea of a 2-car team wasn't a grand one, at least for some people. So how did you make that work?
It was real simple. I wanted the best carburetor. I wanted the best motor. I wanted the best.
But so did Darrell Waltrip.
Yeah, and the kicker there was, I worked hard to put all that together, and we're at Daytona, and here Darrell is. He's over there whining to Junior. Brewer's got the best motor. Brewer's got the best car. Brewer's got the best this. Junior said, well, why the hell don't you go over and take it away from him? It ain't gonna happen. Yeah. I said, here, I'm gonna do you a favor one time. I said, here, I'm gonna pull that motor out, that carburetor, and the whole thing out, and you put it in your car. I mean, it's like day and night. But Dale, I had an oil pan on that thing. Joe Gasaway used to get on me so bad. He said, what is that, a belly pad? I said, no, it ain't a belly pan. But I said, I learned a long time ago, Harold Elliott, we put a big old Lexan oil pan on the motor, on the dyno, and we pulled a hammer on that thing, and we'd go in there and look, and that thing was just overflowing with oil. We wound up putting an oil pump on that thing that long and over-scavenging it, sucking literally all the oil off the connecting rods, the crankshafts, and everything else. But we learned a lot about big oil pans make horsepower, and I had one on Bonnet's cars that I'm telling you, it was like probably 10, 12 horsepower. About like that carburetor that old Rump Pittman had up there, that 4-car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when Tony left to go to work for Felix, they tested a week before we did. Well, one of the inspectors caught that carburetor. And when I get to Daytona, I got Sterling Marlin, I got the 4 team. Man, we're going to rock and roll here. They come over and got me and said, hey, Brewer, let me tell you something. You bring that carburetor off that truck, we'll find you $100 grand and kick you out of here.
Yeah. What was wrong with the carburetor?
Runt Pittman, I'm going to tell you something. The most knowledgeable man I ever worked for as far as an owner was Larry McClure.
Yeah.
He knew lift on the camshaft. He knew duration. He knew rocker arm ratio. He knew everything. But they worked on that carburetor, and everybody else had 5/16 course studs holding the carburetor on.
Yep.
We had metric studs, because you got metric studs, you can push that carburetor back, pull that plate forward, and you align those boosters with the center of the restrictor plate.
Oh.
And that made the horsepower.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty good thing. But when you got 12, 15 horsepower at Daytona, Talladega, and we got down there and they said, you pull that carburetor off there, you're out of here. Okay, that's great. And I told Sterling, I said, let me tell you something, Hoss. When you pull out to pass somebody, you ain't got 15 horsepower more than they got. He go, we lose 3 spots. Then here he come again. Then he pull out again. I go, Sterling, you don't have the damn carburetor.
Yeah.
But, I mean, 15 horsepower, you know what that's worth at Daytona,
sure.
Talladega.
Yeah.
But that carburetor with Larry McClure and old Runt Pittman, they had it going on, plus they had the exhaust system on the car.
Yep.
And I go up there, and, hey, they're going to put me in the NASCAR jail.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, this ain't going to work too good. But it's all about when you work and put the heart and desire into something like Larry McClure put in his Speedway program,
yeah,
you're going to be successful. And that man spent money like no tomorrow. Same way at juniors. We went to the wind tunnel, which I wish I'd have never went there, because come to find out, you remember Terry Lace?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Chevrolet guy.
Oh, yeah, Chevrolet guy. And it's like everything you learned in the wind tunnel,
went everywhere.
there you have it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish I'd have never, I told Junior, I said, if I could go back and do one thing in racing again, I'd never set foot in a wind tunnel. When I went to Marietta, Georgia, that was great, what I got. I even went to a place in Norfolk, Virginia. They flew all the World War II airplanes
right up
in.
there next to Langley Speedway.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you talk about cold. Dale, I was there in February, and we had coats on and gloves. And, I mean, we froze our ass off up there. But we went up there because the information wasn't going nowhere.
Right.
It's not like Gary Akers over here, at the wind tunnel.
Yeah. When when Rick Hendrick comes and tells Darrell Waltrip he's going to hire him and Hammond's going to leave, is that what opened the door for you to get back on the 11 car? Because you stayed there with Terry Labonte, Jeff Bodine, Bill Elliott, back on that red Bud car, number 11. How did that transition from Neil's car to that back to the 11 happen?
When Neil's car went away,
yeah,
Junior said, Brewer, I want you to stay. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, how are you going to cut this up? He said, I want you to take care of the road courses and the short tracks. I said, okay. And let Hammond go do the speedways. That's fine. I don't want to race all the races anyway. Dale, I had more titanium on them cars than you can ever imagine. The first short track car I built for Terry Labonte, I had 600 pounds of lead in that thing. 600 pounds.
What was traditional? 250 pounds?
Maybe 300 at best. But I had holes that big all down the right side frame rail.
Yeah.
I had titanium bell housings, titanium trailing arms, titanium sway bar arms, hubs. I even had some wheel studs, but they didn't work too good. You hit them with a lug with an impact wrench, they weld themselves. But I guess the people at Chevrolet were picking up the tab for all that stuff. But unfortunately, at Pocono, I think Terry got hurt a little bit. No, Darlington, he got hurt. Well, I had my brand new short track car there, and we went to North Wilkesboro to test. And Terry, he was like god awful fast. But when he got hurt, Junior said, well, we got to put Brett Bodine in the car. Mm-hmm. And Brett done us a good job. He finished about 5th. But the best day of my life up there was Hammond had his car, and Pete Wright and a bunch of them over there working on that car.
The 17 Tide car?
No, on the number 11 car.
Number 11, sorry, yeah.
11
testing.
Car. Yeah, and I had
yours.
I had my short track car there. We beat them by a second and a tenth. A second and a tenth.
That's hard to believe.
Oh, yeah. And Hammond, he loaded his car up, put the skids under it, got in the truck himself, and left. And Pete come over there and said, Junior said, if y'all needed any help, you could use us. And I went, yeah, Pete, hell, I'll use you. It ain't no big deal.
Yeah.
But we came back the following fall and took Terry Labonte in that car and won the race. But meanwhile, I built a Riverside car. And I'm sitting there. Them guys are in Pocono. I told Hammond, I said, here, you can use some of this titanium stuff. Well, he left the cross member in the car, and it broke the cross member and fell down on the tailpipes. Okay, that's gone. But I'm getting ready to go to Riverside. Me and Wayne Dalton, and, you know, I got my car ready to go, and it's a killer. Yeah. I mean, killer. Well, Hammond comes in there Monday morning and goes up and tells Junior, said, if Brewer goes to Riverside, I quit.
Why?
He said, what are you talking about? He said, if Brewer goes to Riverside with Terry, I quit. Junior said, well, just pack your stuff and get the hell out of here then. And he come back and told me, he said, hey, he said, you're up. What do you mean I'm up? He said, well, Hammond just told me what he told me, and I just told him to pack his stuff and get the hell out of here. I said, okay, that's fine. But I didn't sign up to do this.
All of them?
I signed up to do the short tracks and the road courses. Well, and then here comes Shorty Edwards. Oh, we're going to go to Riverside. Then we went out there and sat on the pole, and, you know, it's like anything else. I inherited it back.
Yeah.
I was drafted, so to speak. And, you know, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a bad deal, and I loved it. You know, because somebody come up to me one time, and Mike Mulhern, we're sitting in a truck at Atlanta in 1992. And when Mulhern come up in the truck, Junior was sitting there, and Bill, and I was sitting there. And he goes, hey, Brewer, I got to ask you a question. I said, yeah, Mike, what's that? He said, well, it's kind of personal. I said, Junior and Bill, I said, it ain't personal. I said, what I know, they know, and, you know, I'm good. He said, word is Richard Childress wants to hire you to be the crew chief for the Goodwrench team. I said, I have not talked to him about that, but I said, Mulhern, what you got to understand, I got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this Budweiser team, and all I ever wanted to be was the crew chief of the Budweiser car.
Yeah. You
know, and that's it.
Yeah.
Junior knew that he was going to let me go, but he didn't pull me off to the side and go, hey, Brewer, you probably need to go on down your way because I'm going to go a different direction. But he didn't have the guts to do that.
Yeah.
And he hung me out because I could have went to Richard Childress and said, Kirk left.
Yeah.
I'll do this deal.
You're the guy.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have done it with your dad.
Yeah.
But Junior, I got a letter. He did not. He took Mike Beam and Sterling's car and went to Daytona and tested. And Roger Gregory, the Junior called my lawyer, John Morrow, and told him, he said, I'm gonna give Brewer a letter on Friday. I said, okay. Anyway, I got a call from John Morrow on Wednesday. He said, hey, you need to come over here to the office. I said, okay. And Morrow, but I mean, I walked in the office and I got a 6-pack of Bud Light, and Janie said, what are you guys gonna do? I said, I don't know. John called me. I have no clue. And I give John a beer. I had one. He goes, I got some bad news for you, Brewer. I said, what's that? He said, you're going to get a letter Friday. I said, really? I said, what's it going to say? He said, your services are no longer needed at Junior Johnson Associates. I said, that figures. Junior, he's down in Daytona testing. I said, he's going to have Roger Gregory as henchman do it. But I said, that's fine. Ain't no big deal.
Why do you think that happened?
Some personal stuff on Junior's side. Him and Floss went through the divorce.
Yep.
And, we had 2 airplanes. Junior and Beam got in one airplane and went to the Waldorf Astoria. Tierberry flew in there. And I stayed home with Floss and took her to her brother's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And Junior and Floss was like family to me.
Sure.
And, it's like anything else.
You think that soured him a little bit?
No, that didn't, but I know what did, but it ain't worth getting into.
Sure, yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I made a comment. I said, well, that figures Junior's going to give me a letter because he didn't have whatever to tell me in front of me. And I said, that's fine. But, and Bill Elliott called me. He said, Junior called me and told me you weren't going to be there next year. I said, well, you can jump up and down and stomp your feet or do whatever you want to, but if you do Bill, he'll stab you in the back, just like he did me. And I was in press conferences with Junior Johnson before, and reporters would ask me, hey, Brewer, don't you want to own your own race team? And Junior would go, Brewer's got his own race team. You know what that loyalty will do for you? Nothing. Get you in trouble.
Damn.
But he took something away from me, and at the end of the day, I went over to Bobby Labonte's with Bill Davis, and we had the Maxwell House team, and it was okay. But Bill had good people over there, and this, that, and the other. But Dale, it wasn't home.
Yeah,
it was not home. And I mean,
you won 5 races with Bill Elliott in '92. Close opportunity to win the championship. So it is kind of shocking that the relationship with you and Junior had gotten stressed and strained so much so that it's another one of them deals. It seems like level heads could have prevailed and somehow kept it going. But we see it a lot in our sport through the history of the sport. I think one of the most outstanding one of the most outstanding examples would be David Pearson and the Wood brothers, right? Just a miscommunication, a misunderstanding that more than likely had a conversation happen, they might not have split back in 79 or whenever that happened.
79.
Yeah.
You know who put the tires back on the left side of that car that day?
Who knows?
Me and Travis Carter.
Yeah.
Because we were pitting
right
at the
down
end
there
of pit road,
road.
And when he come down there, he had those old Clement wheels on that thing, and I went, well, maybe they'll fit. But and Pearson, I love David Pearson.
Yeah.
But
looking at the research of that whole deal,
miscommunication.
Yeah, like getting upset, getting mad, not willing to really kind of come together and get in the same room.
Exactly.
And figure it out. Something they should have stayed together, just like in this case. With your 5 wins in '92. You and Junior should have figured out maybe how to make it work. And I hate.
And
I want to say this. I want to say this, and then I want you to respond. I hate that you feel the way you feel about Junior because all the things y'all did together. I hate that you still carry this frustration about him, and because I believe that had y'all, if you could sit in the room and talk today, you'd figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
But I didn't get a vote in that.
I know.
Let me tell you something. You know who my best man was at my wedding?
Who?
Junior Johnson.
I know. And so the guy, you know.
But I didn't get a vote.
Yep.
My lawyer, John Morrow, went up there that Saturday after it.
I understand. I'm not here to change your mind.
Sure.
I'm just saying I think that your anger and frustration over that, while justified, I just wish I know that if you had an hour or two with Junior, y'all could have figured it out.
Sure.
And you wouldn't feel that way the rest of your life.
You know, Dale, after we came back from Dover, Delaware in 1992,
yeah,
we were leading the race. Left side tires were questionable. With 25 laps to go, I called Bill on the radio. I said, "Hey, Clyde, bring her down here. We're going to put some fuel in it and give you some left side tires, give you a 7-second lead. We're going to knock this thing home." He said, "Okay, Brewer." Bill's coming down pit road. He's halfway on down pit road. And Junior grabbed me by the arm. He said, "Put 4 tires on my race car." I said, "Junior, you don't need 4 tires. You just need 2 lefts." I said, "Put 4 tires on my car." Okay. Dale, I could have done any damn thing I wanted to and got away with it.
Yeah.
But out of respect, I put 4 tires on that man's race car.
Yeah.
And when I come up from that left front tire, I took that air wrench and slung it back through that wall. Damn near broke his ankles. He said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Junior, we're running to win the damn race." I said, "We ain't racing Davey Allison. We're racing Ricky Rudd." "Well, you been asleep or what?" Mm-hmm. I was hot. Gary Dehart come over to me after the race when we tear the cars down. He said, "Brewer, that was a gift. You give me that one." I said, "Dehart, I didn't give you a damn thing." I said, "You go over and thank Junior Johnson. He's the one to give you that." Mm-hmm. And I called Bill on the radio. I said, "Hey, you got 25 laps to go. You're 7 seconds behind. Good luck."
Yeah.
And we got beat by that much. After the race, I swear to God, Alan Hill was my spotter. Me, Pete Wright, Mike Hill, Bud Green, all of us. We come out of the garage area and we walking up the racetrack. And some drunk is hanging on the fence. And he hollered over there. He said, "Hey, Brewer, you was robbed today." And Alan Hale, he's about 2 guys behind me, he said, "Yeah, it was an inside job, too." Junior turned blood red.
He was there.
He was walking with us. And he turned blood red, and he never spoke a word to me on that airplane all the way home. And what got us burnt now, we eat dinner every night together. Saturday night, we go to dinner and talk over what our deal is. Okay. We get to Phoenix, and we always went to dinner. And when we put that race motor in Saturday morning, I went, "This thing, something ain't right about it." And I didn't say nothing. Goes back to, don't criticize my motors.
Yeah.
That's Richard Childress and Junior Johnson. Don't criticize my motors. Mm-hmm. He got on Austin Dillon's ass. Don't you criticize my motors. Mm-hmm. And I come in there Sunday morning, and I wanted to tell Junior, "Hey, man, we need to change this motor." But I said, "Well, that's just going to pull 5 gallons of gas on the fire. Yeah. It ain't going to be worth a damn." What happened to us? Burn a piston 3 or 4 laps in. Rode around there all day. Dale, I didn't put rags on the vents, on the valve covers. I put a furniture blanket on it because it's blowing out so much oil. Mm-hmm. And Kyle Petty made a comment. He said, "You know, when I come into pit," he said, "it's easy to spot." He said, "That 11 car would be down there smoking. Looked like somebody's having a big barbecue down there."
Yeah.
But, I mean, had we had dinner that night,
you could have talked to him.
He told me after the race, he said, "Tim, I started to tell you to change that damn motor this morning." I said, "It's funny you say that because I was going to tell you the same thing, but that got us behind." We go to Atlanta with Bill, qualified 11th. Get those guys to tell you what I had to do. The Junior bought this brand new rig, and we took it to Daytona. Well, when I got home, I told Henry Benfield, I said, take all that stuff, all that trailer, and put it back in my old trailer. The doors were falling off. But when I got to Atlanta in 1992 for the fall race, Steve Mill and Larry McReynolds stood over there, and they said, watch Brewer. He's going to take a cutting torch to this thing here in a minute. I said, no, I ain't going to do that, and I'm going to stay cool. You couldn't get the back door open. You couldn't get the back door down, and I couldn't get my car off that thing.
The new trailer.
Yeah, new trailer that he bought and paid too much money for. It was the biggest piece of junk. Got it out of Winder, Georgia, down there. That thing pissed me off to no end. But anyway, I told Henry Benfield, I said, and I'm out there bleeding the valves off to get my car out. And Steve Mill, he goes, Brewer's going to burn this thing right here in the garage area. You wait and see. I said, when I get my race car out of it, I might burn it. Funny thing, Robert Yates comes over. He goes, hey, Brewer, you having a good day? Not really, Robert. And he's leaning on the car, and he looked inside. He goes, Brewer, this is that car that you loaned me after Davey crashed in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. Robert asked me, he said, hey, you got a car I can borrow? Sure. I said, I got all my cars laid out, but I said, my Atlanta car, I ain't going to use it in a while. I'll loan it to you. It sat in the top of Robert Yates' truck for 5 weeks. I said, don't paint it. Don't pull the decals off of it, but if you need it, we'll work on it. He looked down there, and he turned white as a ghost. He said, this is the car you loaned me. I said, damn, Robert, if I was you, I'd have raced it. We won the race.
Yeah.
Won the spring race because Mike Wallace spun out up there in turn 2. And I called Bill on the radio. I said, beat them back. Beat them back, Bill. Beat them back. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, just beat them back. We beat them back. I said, congratulations, you got a lap on the field. He goes, Brewer, they're going to put you in the NASCAR electric chair. I said, dude, I ain't done nothing. I said, I just play in the hand they dealt me. But they dropped that green flag. Harry Gant and Davey and all of them took off. But Bill called me. He said, man, you think we're going to make it? I said, if we don't have a caution, we're going to win. I said, you're going to be the hero down in Georgia again. He said, well, I hope so. I said, you know who the nervous guy in the house is? He said, who's that? I said, Harold Kinder. He said, why is Kinder so nervous? I said, if he reaches over that yellow flag, I said, somebody's going to shoot him. Yeah. You in Atlanta, Georgia. But at the end of the day, Junior and I missed communication. Yeah, that cost us. That's where two hard heads come together. Mm-hmm. But it's just as much my fault as it was his. But at the end of the day, that race, I hear all the time, Alan Kwiecki had this calculated and Alan Kwiecki had this calculated. I had pretty good calculation on it. Yeah. But when I called for something to happen on the radio, it didn't happen. I had them right there. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bill Elliott, I still love him to death. It's one of those deals where Alan Kwiecki won the championship. It was meant to happen. Yeah. Because I'm still here, and he won him a championship. And he was a good guy, and he had some great guys working for him. But, we knew what we needed to do that day, but where we fumbled the ball was in Phoenix.
Yeah. After that year, you'd end up working with Bob Labonte and Jeff. You'd go work with Robbie Gordon and John Andretti, Jeff Bodine with his race team, Morgan McClure. A lot of different teams over the remainder of your career. But eventually, you'd get in TV, working with ESPN, and a lot of people. From maybe a generation younger than me, remember you as the guy at the cutaway car, helping us understand some of the issues teams might be having that day, or a part or something that broke, or some innovation that was new in the sport. And you had a really good reputation managing that part of your life. I guess what I want to know is how challenging was the how challenging was the choice, I think, to step away from the competitive side of it, the competition side, right? Being a crew chief or a GM or being on the side trying to take a team to the racetrack and be great. How hard was it to step away from that and get into the television side of it or change your whole life?
That's really simple. Just like you said, I worried about it. But when we came through that tunnel coming to Daytona, when we started our ESPN thing, typical deal, I looked around and I went, damn, this is pretty neat.
Yeah.
I ain't got to worry about winning a race or beating nobody. I don't care who wins.
Yeah.
I'm just here to do a job.
Yeah.
But
what was nice.
What was really reassuring to me, when I sat down in that chair and Rusty was over there and they took him off to go do something, Brett Musburger was sitting beside of me. Now, Brett Musburger, I've watched him forever. I've watched him call the Masters. I've watched him call. When he's calling a basketball game, I can tell you who he bet on 5 minutes in. But he tapped me on my hand right there. He said, hey, laddie, this is the way we're going to play this today. You're going to carry us today. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I got a picture of me carrying Brett Musburger on national TV. That's like a snowball's chance in hell. But anyway, he said, the way we're going to play this is, I hadn't been around about 10 years, Brewer. I said, yeah, I got that. He goes, you're going to ask me, you're going to say, hey, Brewer, ask me this. I'm going to ask you, and you're going to answer it. And he said, you're going to carry us today. My first show.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, Musburger. But Jack Arute told me, he said, take him to dinner, make sure you buy him a nice bottle of wine, and get up under that wing, and he'll fly you right to the top. I got nominated for 3 Emmys, and I won one. And I'm on a plane with Richard Childress one day. He said, hey, Brewer, you won that Emmy. I said, yeah. I said, if I win me another in RC, I'll give you one to go in the museum. He said, because people don't understand. Richard Childress built every one of those cutaway motors for me, and I had 5 of them. And Larry McReynolds used to come over all the time, and he'd go, hey, Brewer, what's this do? I said, here, what's this? And I'd flip that switch, and that motor start running and turning. And he went, I ain't even got one like that. I said, yeah, watch this. I pulled that thing in gear, and you could see the gears and the transmission and the rear end, and everything started moving. Yeah. He goes, he just slammed the door and went out the door. And I went, you ain't mad, are you? But Larry and I were still good friends. We pull for Alabama all the time, and we're always texting back and forth, but Saban ain't there no more. So, I got to find me something else to do on the weekends. But I cannot tell you what a tremendous life I had coming out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and playing with the race cars and being fortunate enough. I don't tell too many people this. I went 2 weeks into the 9th grade. No high school education, no college education, no nothing. I funded programs at NC State University. August Bush, Edsel Ford, people at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, wind tunnels, this, that, and the other. I hung with all of them.
Yeah.
And, enjoyed every minute of it. And when people look at you and go, you did what? It's like, I never worked a day in my life, Dale. It was a game for me. But when they started fining me $50,000 for a template infraction, it wasn't fun no more.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you people doing? What are you doing to the sport? I could tell you a story about Gary Nelson when he come to Daytona. And Bill Elliott today, he'll tell you that, and Sterling Marlin, the trick I had on that car, Bill Elliott, he went, Elizabeth. I said, ain't no need in calling her pal because she ain't going to get us out of the penitentiary on this one.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I seen Junior at that gate, that little gate that used to go out the back, gate 7 or whatever it was. He said, I met Junior on a dead run a while ago. I said, really? I said, he's probably halfway back to Wilkesboro. He said, you mean Junior ain't going to be here if we get caught? I said, you think he's going to let him hold his feet to the fire? He's out of here. I'm telling you, dude. He goes, Brewer, you got to be the bravest man in the world. I said, it's a game.
Yeah.
That's all it was to me. It's like I told your dad.
Yeah.
It's a game.
Was that the year y'all changed the trailing arms on the 11 and the 22 up in the hauler?
That might have something to do with
qualifying?
That might have something to do with that.
What was the trick?
McReynolds has been trying to get me to tell him that for years, and it's like I told him. I said, "Now you see it. Now you don't."
Yeah. You know, a buddy of mine.
I don't know. I don't know who told you that one.
Brad Means, Jimmy's son. So Brad, you know, Jimmy and those guys. They're pretty. Like you said, Daddy had an eye on him. All those guys down in the garage, you know them guys. They all were watching. They don't know what you're doing, but they know you're doing something. But they don't know what it is. You know. Well,
that's just like Jim Baldwin. He used to work at NASCAR. Well, Childress, he hired him, and he went over there and. Baldwin was Childress's inside man, and everybody had an inside man.
Yeah.
When you walked in that gate, somebody's going to tell you, "Hey, Brewer, they're on fuel cells today. Hey, Brewer, they're on lower control arms. They're on this, they're on that." I had my inside guys too.
Yeah.
You know, when I'd have Dale, I had a house out in Pofftown, North Carolina, about 6,300 square foot, big colonial, big white columns in front of it, swimming pool in the front yard. River, ponds, and all that stuff. At Christmas, I used to have 125 people at my house, but Beatty wasn't invited because all his people was there.
Oh,
it was a game to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody left with a country ham, big old cashews, a half-gallon of liquor, and a little envelope. But
that's hilarious.
But I mean, at the end of the day,
yeah.
Hey, you take care of business when you take care of business.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the Hall of Fame thing. Deb Williams called me about a month ago. She said, "Hey, Brewer, congratulations." I said, "For what?" She said, "You've been inducted into the Hall of Fame in Darlington, South Carolina." I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "First one I've ever been inducted in." She said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I ain't in North Carolina Hall of Fame. I ain't NASCAR Hall of Fame, but, Darlington.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me, Dale, because it's Darlington, South Carolina.
Yeah.
But to reap the rewards, man, I did that a long time ago. And, what we're talking about today is stuff that I did 25, 30 years
lifetime ago. Oh, yeah.
And, I'm fortunate. My son, he's 44. In 1979, we were in College Station, Texas. We blew up everything we had on the truck in 79 with Cale Yarborough. I get back to the hotel, got a message at the front desk. Call home. I called Susan. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" She said, "Your grandma passed away." Oh, okay. And Junior's standing right there. He said, "What are you going to do, Brewer?" I said, "Junior, I got to go home and bury my grandma." "Well, I'll go with you." I said, "Okay." So we came back to Charlotte and went back to Winston-Salem. I buried my grandma. Well, she raised me. Bertha Bell Cook, she weighed every bit of 88 pounds, maybe 90. Wrestle, fight you all day long. Loved her. But anyway, long story short, we go out to College Station, Texas, 1980. Sat on the pole, led every lap, won the race. Cale bought me a big old cowboy hat, and Travis and all of us. I'm sitting in the airport, and Benny Parsons goes, "Hey, Brewer, come on, let's go to Vegas." I said, "Man, I can't go to Vegas. Susan's getting ready to have a baby." June the 2nd, 1 year later, my son Scott was born. And I come to Statesville, let Travis out, and Linda comes out and says, "You got to get home. You got to get home. Susan needs you." Okay, whatever. I walked in the house, set my bag down, still got my cowboy hat on, took Susan straight to the hospital. She had the baby.
Yeah.
But, my grandmother, she literally raised me. She died June the 2nd, 1979. My son was born June the 2nd, 1980.
Yeah.
Big man, he taketh away and he giveth.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I couldn't be, I'd like to say I wouldn't change nothing, but I would.
Sure.
If I could.
Yeah.
But, I look up in that rear view mirror, what goes that way ain't going to come back around this way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's like your daddy. I'm sitting at St. Elmo's after he had that big crash in Talladega, him and Sterling. And Susan and I, we're sitting there eating at St. Elmo's, and I look up, and there's this big shadow coming over me. And I look up, and I go, You ain't 10 foot tall and bulletproof, huh, dude? And Teresa busted out laughing. She said, Brewer, you one of the only SOBs in the world. Tell him that and get away with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like Bill France Jr. He told me, he said, Brewer, when you come up in this truck and you got a complaint, you shut that door and you call me anything you want to, and we'll work it out. But he said, if you hit me in the press or in front of a TV camera, he said, I'm going to hit you with both barrels. And that's the way he taught your dad, me, Richard Childress, and all the following that he had. But your dad, Bill France Jr., and T. Wayne Robertson, at their demise, it all changed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a different sport these days. Man, this has been a long one. This has been fun. And I'm glad that you came here today. We've had a bit of a run on what I would say are throwback crew chiefs. Buddy Parrott was here, and Travis came through, and so it's kind of been fun because it wasn't really intentional, but it's kind of been fun because there's been a bit of, each one of you's kind of been mentioned in the conversation at one point. And so it's been, I love being able to kind of like step back in time and imagine what it's like being around the sport and being around the cars and the men and the garages and what the temperature and vibe must have been like. This has been fun for me. I appreciate it. I admire what you've done. I think when we all sit down and look at your career and not just the mechanic and the crew chief, but also the impact that you had on the innovation you had on the way we watch races and the broadcasts. You certainly left an impact and made your mark. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that you were able to come here today and be so honest with us and transparent. And you look great coming up on 70.
Thank you very much. As far as the TV career, Rusty Wallace, because when he called George Botenheimer and said, I got a guy for you.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went to ESPN, that was one of the great experiences. But to come here today, I live in Troutman.
Yeah.
I don't live 5 miles from you. You probably fly over my house all the time. I watch your stuff. I've never been to your go-kart track, never been to your place out there, but I hear it's pretty nice. But, my son, he gets on me all the time. I got this place in Troutman I've had for a pretty good while, nice swimming pool and all that stuff. And I've started me a place in Myrtle Beach, and I got 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. And, I built a crow's nest up on top of it, and I can stand on top of the crow's nest, and it's about 10 by 12 with my chairs and all that stuff. Naturally, my cooler, a little Bud Light in it. But I can see the waves break. And I built me a cocktail deck where I can drive my golf cart up under it and had it underpinned so it don't rain on it.
Yeah.
Susan and I, we kind of like to go down there and hang out. My son, Scott, and his wife, Samantha, and my granddaughter, Sloan, they went down there for the weekend of Darlington. And he hadn't been there since I bought it, and he went, what do you buy that thing for? And I've rebuilt it completely. And he said, Dad, you didn't tell me this place was that nice. I said, what did you expect? You know what I mean? He goes, Dad, Sloan loves this place, and, we love it. But what I love about my place at the beach, it's in the Apache campground, but I've got a park model home down there, Dale. But what I love about it, I can set up on top, and they got all them campers and motor coaches and stuff down there on the bottom that I look across, and instead of having a backstretch at Rockingham or Darlington or Talladega or Daytona, I got the Atlantic Ocean to look at. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And Annie Schrader came down there, I don't know, about 2 months ago, and she said, Brewer, you better hope Kenny never comes down here.
Yeah.
I said, why is that? Said, he'll put a cooler of beer up there, and he ain't never going to leave.
I'll tell you this, man. When I'm 70 years old, if I got a place on the beach, I won't be having no place in Troutman. I'll be at the beach full time. That's for damn sure.
Well, hey, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you asking me to come on. I really enjoyed it. I hadn't done one of these things in quite some time, But your family, grandfather, and I won't tell you a few stories about Robert G., but we'll leave that for maybe the next time.
Yeah.
But I love him to death. The best one I'm going to tell you, when I'm sitting in my office at Blue Max Racing and Judy Tucker's my receptionist secretary, Robert come in one day and Judy told him, said, Robert, you can't go in there. He's talking to Raymond Beadle, the owner. Robert says, that's okay. I don't mind. He came in there and he sat down in the chair, and Beadle, typical deal, I'm getting my butt cheat out for, hey, you're spending too much money. You're doing this, you're doing that. And I go, okay. Raymond, I got to go. Brewer, this is a business meeting. We got to sit there and finish this. I said, no, I got somebody to talk to. Somebody come in, I got to talk to him. Who's more important than me right now? I said, Robert G. is. He said, why is that? I said, because he ain't going to chew my ass out for spending too much money. You can believe that.
Yeah.
But I sold him. He said, Ivan, you got to sell me that petty blue pickup truck with the black fenders. I said, I just bought that thing from Ralph Seagraves. You got to understand, I might get lucky in that thing. I said, how's that? He goes, I get that thing all dolled up. He said, I go over and pick Marie up Sunday morning, carry her to church. I said, yeah. How's that going to get me lucky? He goes, well, after lunch, he said, you know, I'm going to get that old thing wound up and get it pulled back in high gear. He said, I'm going to reach over and pop that Cale induction thing up. He said, blow her dress up overhead. Old Robert might get lucky. I loved him to death.
Yeah, he was a special man. I know that you won't share the secrets on the Junior Johnson cars that sat on the front row with the trailing arm changes up in the hauler. Give me one innovation, one trick that you're probably the most proud of that come out of your creative mind.
I'll tell you what I combated. We're on pit road, and Darrell Waltrip's number 88 comes down the pit road, and that thing is splattered buckshot all over everything. I went, really? That's a pretty good idea. And I asked him, I said, how much y'all putting in there? Old Buddy Parrott used to say, loading the cannon. He's putting about 20 pounds of buckshot in there.
Yeah.
They don't run in the same park with me. I went and got me, I ain't never told nobody this, but I'm going to tell you. And it'll make the highlight reel. You can bet your ass on that. I went over to Francis Allen in the parts room. It's like when I got them Sportsman wheels, I got me 4 brand new wheels. And I had me one little area up there at Junior's that when I went in there and shut that door, don't come in there.
Yeah.
I got me 4 wheels, and I put me some 3/8 studs and some big body washers on 8 points all the way around it. I made me a form. We got me old rear end bucket, melted me 40 pounds of lead, and poured it in 4 wheels.
Damn.
What's 4 times 40? 160.
Yeah. So that was on the wheel. And the car would go over the scale with those wheels on and then race with a different set of wheels. Damn. I bet it was a whole lot faster without all that.
Cale Yarborough come to Wilkesboro to test. He said, what are you doing? I said, I got a little trick. He goes, what's that going to do? I said, you'll see. And new set of tires, went out and run 20 laps, done all that. Then I pulled them off, put the light ones on it, regular standard wheels. And I'm going to go to the electric chair for that. It's probably cost me getting in the Hall of Fame because people are going to think I'm a damn cheater or something or other. But anyway, first pit stop, I take them things off. What would your car do if you was a 160-pound light?
It would be easier to drive. That's sure.
But Darrell Waltrip, I'm going to tell you the best one on him. I left and went on and done my deal. Well, Dale, when I came back, I had Neil Bonnet. I run 1,067 laps up there with Leo Mel for Goodyear. And anyway, we're up there at the spring race, and things ain't going real good. And we ain't near as good as we need to be with Neil. Well, Neil, he said, well, I just don't know this, that, and the other. I said, dude, it's Wilkesboro. You got to be the best you can be at Wilkesboro. About that time, Darrell come up in a truck. And I asked Junior, I said, hey, where's my 4 wheels at? He said, hell, I don't know. He's somewhere over in that garage. He said, ain't nobody got crazy enough to run them damn things but you. I said, well, I asked Darrell, I said, hey, I'm going to use 2 of them wheels tomorrow. You want 2 of them? He said, I don't need them 2 wheels to kick your ass at North Wilkesboro. I said, okay, that's fine. I told Rick Peters, I said, put me 4 tires up in the sleeper of that truck and tell Beatty you got to take it to the house. I went and found them wheels, mounted them 4 tires on it. Next morning, I come in there, I pulled 160 pounds of lead out of that race car, put my wheels on there. First pit stop, I took them off. Guess who won the race? Neil Bonnet. Guess who run second?
Who?
Darrell Waltrip. After the race, we down there in the truck, and I'll never forget this. We sitting there talking to Junior. Well, Darrell comes in. He goes, Junior, Brewer cheated me. He looked at me and said, you cheat Darrell? I went, no, not really. Darrell said, I know damn well you did. You offered me 2 of them wheels. You run 2 of them wheels on Bonnet's car. Junior looked at him. He said, didn't Brewer offer you 2 of them wheels, Darrell? He said, yeah. He said, I didn't need them damn wheels to beat him. He said, you're right. Brewer used all 4 of them. You could see the steam come out of some of his ears. And I laughed. But it's a game.
Oh, yeah.
But back then, Dick Beatty come to me. He said, Brewer, we're going to start weighing these cars. I said, Beatty, you a little late. But I loved old Dick Beatty.
Yeah.
But he used to spank my hand all the time. But I mean, at the end of the day, you think it ain't hard to pull some of this stuff off?
Yeah.
And that's like the scales at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You remember they used to have the big digital numbers up there? Well, all you had to do was put a magnet on the scales for whatever you wanted to take out of your car.
Yeah.
You go back there to the engine room, you get on the gram scales, and you go, okay, 110 grams, that's 100 pounds. You just, whoever was on the scale, you just have them, Eddie Thrapp or me, whoever was there, just stick the magnet on it. You could go through a 100-pound light.
Damn.
And then, I forgot who it was. Might have been Thrapp. He goes, Brewer, I got a problem. I said, what's that? He goes, I didn't get the magnet off the scales. I said, you better go back and get it. I'm telling you right now. But it was a game, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Maurice Petty when he won that race over there with Richard Petty, and we run second with Tim Richmond, and they tore the motor down. And Chief backed up against the wall. He told Gasaway, he said, hey, I claim 388 cubic inches right now. And Gasaway says, there ain't no way. Chief said, I built the motor. I know how big it is,
Yeah.
But not to mention 4 left side tires. But other than that, I mean, it was a game. But to answer your question about, the ESPN thing, Richard Petty came up to me at Watkins Glen, New York. We were sitting down there at the airport waiting to go out. And we'd been on air, and I had a pretty good field time that day. And the King, he come over, he put his arm around me. He said, Brewer, I'm going to tell you something. And I always call him King. I said, what's that, King? He said, don't let this blow your dress up. I said, okay, King, what's that? He said, of all the people they throw it to, every time they throw it to you, you get it right, Brewer. Don't let that blow your dress up. I said, okay, King, I'll see you later. Thank you. But come from Richard Petty. Mm-hmm. And when he tells you something like that, it means something.
Yeah, sure.
But we could sit here and talk for days and days about different stories, just like, I'm sure you guys had some tricks over there at DEI.
Oh, heck yeah.
But, I mean, it's like –
you just race against it. You had to do it.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
Like I told your old man.
Yeah.
Like I told your old man. Hey, the trick is I want to do it, win the race, get the trophy and the money, then I'm splitting. I'm getting the hell out of here. But at the end of the day, man, I loved it. It was a game. It kept me young.
Yeah.
And it kept me off the streets and out of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, I appreciate it. That's some good stories. This has been a lot of fun for me, and I want to have you back. I definitely want to hear some stories about my granddaddy Robert G., and I know you've got some good ones. So we'll have to do that one in the next trip.
I appreciate you.
Right,
Thank
buddy.
you very much, brother.
You betcha, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so a great conversation with Tim Brewer, and boy, you just ask the guy a question and he just goes and goes. Makes my job or my role in this easy. And boy, he took us everywhere. We talked about everything. And I love the innovation. He had those wheels that he made and put all that lead in to make those wheels heavy, and they weren't weighing the cars post-race. So all he had to do was get the car across the scales at the start of the day, and he was good to go. Until NASCAR eventually started weighing the cars after the race, and then he's had to figure out another hole in the rule book. So, anyways, Tim Brewer, man, he's I think about Tim, and I do forget, like, all the things that he did, all the teams he worked for, all the races that he won, all the championships that he won. I don't forget about his TV role, but I think I do forget the impact that it had. I know that when he was doing the cutaway car, he had, people appreciated that insight and that involvement, and he was quite a character, and with his gold rings and his watch and all that stuff, sitting there talking about a rear suspension of a car, but a little bit taken aback by his frustrations with Jeff Hammond, and Junior Johnson, and I don't know, because I look up to Junior Johnson, and I'm like, that's, Junior Johnson is Junior freaking Johnson. How could anybody be, how could anybody feel the way that Tim feels about him? I'm sure there's people that are pissed off at Junior Johnson. I know the man, stood his ground and did what he believed in, and that might not have been good for everybody. But I hope that Tim can find some common ground there with that. But because they had so much success together, right? That would be like Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canals breaking up and just being in a steady feud for the remainder of their lives. Unnecessary. So anyhow, great conversation. I think that the innovation stories were probably some of the more brazen ones we've heard in this room. Maybe not. I mean, the spoiler with the Harrogate spoiler was, that's pretty crazy. But they didn't race it. They said they just run it in qualifying because they were scared to race it. But pretty cool. So I'm thankful for Tim. Thankful for Ally bringing us the guest segment every single week. And they brought us another Ally. We've had a little run on some vintage crew chiefs. I didn't want to say that with him in the room, call him vintage. But we've had a little run on some vintage crew chiefs, and they all have kind of connected in certain ways in their careers. So that's been enjoyable for me. Gets me back into some of the history of the sport that I want to learn more about. And so thank you, Ally. No matter what you're saving for, whether it's race tickets to the race this weekend at Bristol, a new car, or a home, we're all better off with an Ally. All right, it's time for the white flag. Dropping every Sunday, the teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. And then Monday, Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin and Door Bumper Clear. We had Connor Zillich, the winner of the Xfinity race, as a guest on Door Bumper Clear for Monday. Dirty Air with TJ Majors was a lot of fun yesterday. Today, Speed Street, Connor Daly and Chase Holden are going to recap championship weekend in IndyCar. Easy for me to say. And then dropping tomorrow, DJD Reloaded with Ask Junior and more. And Dirty Mo Doe. We'll see what some of the best bets are for this weekend at Bristol. Maybe talk some other sports, NFL, some other things going on out there. And remember to leave us a 5-star Apple review. We will read it right here. Leave one, and I promise you, next week, I'll read that for you. All right. Y'all have a good week. Check out Dirty Mo Media on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.